So I was scrolling through the front page on Roblox, and it's pretty boring to say the least. But do you know what it's missing? An RPG. But hold on, what is an RPG? It's a popular game genre where you explore huge worlds, defeat tough bosses, and complete quests to unlock new weapons, armor, and abilities. And I think this would be the perfect kind of game to recreate in Roblox. But there's just one problem. These kind of games take years to make, even with a full team of developers. But all I have is myself. So this is probably a bad idea. But I do have a lot of motivation for this project, and I need to upload a new video soon. So that should be enough to get this game going, right? Before I started working on the game itself, I opened up a document to keep everything organised, because the last thing I want is a load of unnamed parts in the workspace. So I started off by writing a list of the core gameplay mechanics, and finding some images online for inspiration. And now that I had a basic idea of what I wanted to make, I opened up Roblox Studio, and created a new base plate to get the project started. The first thing I wanted to create was a custom player system. So by default, Roblox has its own built-in camera system, player controller, sound effects, and animations. But I wanted to create my own. So I began by switching the game from R15 to R6 to give the player that classic look, because everyone knows that classic Roblox is better. After that, I got to work creating some new animations, following the player as idle, walking, running, and jumping. And I actually think these turned out pretty good. Probably because I just took them from the toolbox. Look, I tried animating my own walk cycle, but it ended up looking like this. So I thought it would be better if I just, borrowed one from the toolbox. So yeah, after implementing the new animations, the game is coming along nicely, although it's still missing the most important feature, the camera. So I got to work fixing the camera by adjusting its C-frame property to give it that over-the-shoulder effect, which you often see in RPG games. And once I tested it in... okay, that's not meant to happen. And once I tested it in-game, the camera is now locked in place and following the player, which will definitely help out during combat. And speaking of combat, it was about time that I started working on the weapon system. So I opened up the reference images that I found earlier to get some inspiration. And just like that, the sword model was ready to be used in the game. So I exported it as an FBX, and then imported it into Roblox Studio. Whoa! Okay, I definitely need to resize it. So I scaled it down, and used a plugin called Tool Grip Editor to adjust the sword's position, because it kept making me teleport inside of the base plate whenever I tried holding it. Now that the sword was all set up, it was time to move on to the fun part, scripting. And like I said before, I wanted to keep this project organised, so I tried using module script for the first time in a while. It went awful. I kept getting error after error, and I had no idea what was going wrong, until I finally realised that I forgot to add in a single dot. So much for module scripts being better to use. But I think it'll be worth using them in the end, because that way, I won't have to duplicate the same script every time I add a new weapon to the game. So now when I spawn into the game, then I have the sword, and I can use it to attack these rigs. But since they're exactly what you'd call enemies, I figured I should replace them with something that actually fights back. So I went back to the document and made a list of all of the possible enemies I could add to the game. It turned out way longer than I was expecting, but since the game is still pretty early on in development, I decided to just pick 2 enemies. I went with these 2 because I had already made a model for them in my old tower defense game. So now the enemies are in the game, but there's just one problem. They don't actually do anything. To fix this, I had to create an enemy AI system. The AI system had to handle 3 main functions. Number 1, make the enemy walk around to random positions. Number 2, make the enemy follow the player. And number 3, make the enemy attack the player when they get close enough. So to do that, I opened up a new module script. Yeah, I'm using module scripts again. And then I got to work on writing the code. And I was gonna try to explain how it all works, but I have no idea what any of this even means, because I've just been copying the code from a free model zombie. But at least it works. The enemies walk around the map, start following me if I get too close, and then attack me when I'm in range. Now that the enemy system is in place, I wanted to make the combat feel more interactive. So I decided to add abilities to make it more engaging. First, I created a dash ability, which will help the player quickly escape from enemies. I did this by adding velocity to move the player forwards, so now whenever I press Q on the keyboard, then I can dash forwards. And it's actually pretty fun to use. Just ignore the weird animation. I told you I'm not a good animator. After that, I created a shield ability to block incoming attacks. I did this by enabling a bool value, which stops the player from taking damage while they're blocking. So now whenever I press E on the keyboard, then this force field appears around the player to block the enemy's attacks. So with the new addition of abilities, I wanted to put them to good use. So I decided to add a quest system. For the first quest, you have to beat up 3 enemies in return for some gold and XP. So to get it to work, I designed an NPC, set up a custom proximity prompt so you can talk to him, and then put together a basic GUI to track your progress. And when I say basic GUI, I literally mean just a white box with some text. But don't worry, I'll fix it once the quest system actually works, and that's where the module script comes in. The module script is what holds all of the quest information, like the description, progress, gold, and XP. So once you walk up to the NPC and trigger the proximity prompt, then the GUI appears, and the quest begins! And once I kill all 3 enemies, then I get rewarded some gold and XP. Which is good, but I still need to fix this ugly GUI. So I opened up the document to get some ideas for the GUI design, and I ended up choosing this one because it fits the cartoony look I'm going for. Then I basically recreated the design and imported it into Roblox Studio. And while in the process of making the quest GUI, I also created the custom toolbar, health bar, and leader stats GUI to replace the default ones. Now the game actually has a consistent theme, but I wanted to take it even further and add some visual effects and sound effects to make the gameplay feel more responsive. So I went looking through the toolbox and found some audio for the weapons, for enemies, and even the UI. Then I went through every single script and implemented the sound effects, which took way longer than I thought. But even with all the sound effects, it still felt like something was missing. The music! So I grabbed my piano, and then got to work on creating the soundtrack. And after spending the entire day putting it all together, I finally came up with something that's good enough to use in the game. Now that the sound effects and music are in place, I moved on to adding some visual effects to make the graphics look more interesting. That's when I realised I had to create a world for all of this stuff to live in, aka build a map. But I didn't want to build the entire map in this one video, because that would take forever. So I decided to keep it simple, and just build a spawn area instead. And I think it's looking pretty good so far. But there's obviously still a lot of stuff I need to add, so if you have any ideas for things I could add next, then make sure to leave a comment down below.